Superheroes are all the rage right now. At the top is Marvel creating these powerhouse films and taking over the world one superhero at a time. But in it all, there are some things they don't want you to know about. We're here to talk about Thor and some of the stuff you may not know that Marvel is trying to keep from you. But before we get started, make sure you take a quick moment to click on that subscribe button. You'll join our notification squad and stay up to date with all these types of videos and more.
Simple. Any questions?
Can I have my shoe back?
Stanley didn't create Thor. For those who may be unfamiliar, Stanley is a comic book writer, film producer, and publisher, among many other things. He's known as the mastermind behind most of the American superheroes created, such as Spider-Man, the Hulk, Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four, Iron Man, the X-Men, and a lot more fictional characters. One of those other fictional characters is Thor. But wait, as much as we all very much love Stan, and it's so easy to immediately throw credit his way for Thor, he actually deserves very little credit for his creation. And of course, Marvel isn't exactly putting it out there for people to know. The world admires Stan and everything he touches in the Marvel Universe. Had it been widely known he had nothing to do with Thor, Marvel would have been taking a huge monetary risk. It was actually Jack Kirby and Larry Lieber who were the masterminds behind the creation of Thor. Stan, years after the creation and release of the films, has gone on record stating he was too busy to write the stories for the character. He stated it was actually his brother Larry who pulled from the Norse mythology in Thor's design, and Jack who designed him.
You've had this coming for a long time, of course, but you know this.
Epic TV show fail. Marvel first released Thor in theaters way back in 2011 and were shocked at how well it was received critically and by fans. 3 feature films later, several appearances in other films, and an insanely profitable merchandise run, it's getting harder and harder to believe that Thor wasn't always so loved, and Marvel definitely wants to keep it that way. But alas, there was a time that Thor was a huge jackass. Thor made his first live-action appearance in a TV movie way back in 1988's The Incredible Hulk Returns. The plan had been for Thor to use the popular appeal of The Incredible Hulk as a springboard to launch the God of Thunder into his very own TV series. They had planned on following a similar story plot for 2 separate entities struggling to exist in the world. It was to be the struggle between Thor and Donald Blake. Blake was created by Odin to be Thor's host. It was to show him humility. Sounds cool, right? Wrong. It went terribly for the creators and masterminds of this plan. Thor was a jackass in the movie. He was insanely unlikable, and the planned series never happened. This Thor is one that Marvel is forever trying to bury.
Very interesting theory. I have a simpler one. You're all not worthy.
Massive ego. Thor has become a household name these days, but that was not always the case. To be honest, Thor really is not a likable character. Over the decades of his existence, Marvel struggled to find a consistent audience for him. Yes, there were huge surges in popularity over the years, but most of the time, all of the various Thor titles sold poorly on the market. But why, you ask? A huge issue, and one Marvel has done well to fix, comes in the fact that Thor is just straight up not appealing to the regular person. He's an arrogant SOB with a massive god complex. But hey, he is a bona fide god, so he sorta has the right to have a massive ego. Therein lies the problem. Over the history of storytelling from the time of cave paintings, the most successful characters have been those who the audience can relate with. Luckily, Marvel finally realized this and made a lot of changes from Thor's comic book character type to his type on screen. And for the record, we love over-the-top heroes. They're awesome and we definitely want more of them. It's just that audiences and us like to have traits that we can relate with. And being an egotistic bona fide god is not one of them.
Trouble is at hand. I must return to Asgard at once.
I get it! You're hopping mad at your bro.
Throg. There's something to be said about time running its course to allow for change to feel acceptable. Thunder Frog, or Throg, is definitely one of these moments, because when it was first released, there was a huge upheaval within the comic book community. Luckily for Marvel, it's become a cult classic, and here's why. Throg is a spin-off of Thor written by Marvel staff writer Walter Simonson. The story is about a character named Simon Walterson, and yes, it is the author's name flipped with slight liberties. Walterson sustained a tragic knee injury, ending his football career. At the same time, his wife and unborn child died, spiraling him into depression. Walterson went in search of mystics, psychics, and mediums to speak with his wife once more. He discovered a witch who helped, but when he couldn't pay her, she transformed him into a frog. From there, he went on to the Great Rat Wars in the sewer. Thor came to help in the Great Battle, and during, a sliver of his hammer broke off. Walterson, now named Puddle Gulp, picked it up and it turns into a miniature Mjolnir, granting Puddle Gulp the powers of Thor. Eventually, the Pet Avengers are created and the stories get even crazier. This is one Marvel really does not like to talk about and tries to bury constantly.
Thor will not fall by your hand, monster!
Thor Leaf. Marvel's Ultimate Marvel Universe line of comics is definitely an assortment of what the hecks. Whether or not the success of each of these Ultimate comics or how much acclaim they've received, no one can say that Marvel didn't make bold decisions. In them, they even killed off Peter Parker, but that's for another video. We're here now to talk about how Marvel handled Thor in these comics. Thor is represented more as a comical figure. In it, Thor has been deemed to be out of control, unhinged, and even delusional by all of his fellow Avenger buddies. This is because Thor was under the belief that he was a human, more specifically, a psychiatric nurse named Thorleif Goldman. But don't worry, just before his 30th birthday, Thorleif began having delusions of Asgard. This would land him in a mental institute for 18 months, all due to his constant claims of being the Norse god of thunder, Thor. Eventually, it's revealed that he was actually Thor, but through it all, the character was erratic and an unwilling, unlikable character. There are many things that Marvel gets right and loves to show off, but this is one thing that they've been steering clear of for years.
Match your might. To feel your life fade away as my hands wrap around your throat.
The Real Thor. Marvel is a phenomenal team of storytellers. By far, they are the best superhero films out there with no others in sight. Their ability to weave storylines and characters within all their films is hands down superior. However, just as Walt Disney took extreme liberties with the folktales and played them off for decades as the true representation of the tales, so has Marvel with Thor. Let's start with Marvel's Thor, who's a blonde, clean-shaven man who speaks in a Shakespearean speech pattern. Thor spews out these and thous as much as possible. The only problem with all this is it's totally incorrect to the Norse mythology of Thor. The Norse Thor had red hair, not blonde, which seems insignificant, but the color of hair plays into the personality of the god. Marvel chose blonde for a more widely acceptable hair color since red hair had a stigma associated with it during the time. Norse Thor also would never have been seen without his beard and didn't speak any sort of English. For Mjolnir to fly back to him, he would have needed magic gloves and a special belt to reach the full powers of Mjolnir. Norse Thor also couldn't fly without his chariot pulled by goats. These are just some of the differences Marvel tries to avoid letting the world know about.
My son, finally.
The real Odin. Let's talk about Odin, Thor's father. In Marvel's Odin, he's the wise, peace-loving padre of Thor and adopted padre of Loki. He reigns over Asgard in a just and orderly manner. Sounds like an awesome dad, right? Well, if Marvel's Odin were to ever meet up with the Norse mythology Odin, Marvel's Odin would have his rear end handed to him. To put it very nicely, the Norse Odin is an epic war god who gave two licks for law, justice, or peace. Odin essentially loves being in war and definitely loves to start fights. This is in stark contrast to the Odin represented in Marvel's Thor, played by Anthony Hopkins. Marvel's Odin exiled Thor for starting a tiny fight with the Frost Giants. The Norse Odin was by no means a god to be loved. He was cruel, violent, and to be feared by all. The Marvel Odin is meant to be compassionate and more forgiving, and he has the powers to do just about anything the writers need him to do when they get stuck. Marvel definitely steered clear of this less family-friendly version. We can't blame them too much, but we still would have loved to see the Norse Odin on the big screen.
Your weapon is mighty, demon, but now it belongs to Beta Ray Bill!
Beta Ray Bill. Okay, so the world is pretty much in global agreement that Thor is a kick-ass superhero. Thor is a sexy god to be adored by fans and critics worldwide. Marvel ingeniously built Chris Hemsworth up as Thor from a small fan base to be one of the world's leading superhero characters. There's merchandise everywhere you go. And this is miraculous because Thor was a C-lister superhero, a nothing. A lot of comic book fans didn't even care too much for him. In fact, there's actually a version of Thor fans prefer more so, but Marvel doesn't want want you to know about it. After all, they just spent gobs of money architecturing Thor's success. That character's name is Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill was created by Walt Simonson when he took over writing and graphic duties for Thor. He's the reason that Thor became as popular as he did prior to the movies. Beta Ray Bill is one of the most visually unique superheroes in the Marvel Universe. Odin himself was so impressed, he created a new hammer for Beta after defeating Thor called Stormbreaker. Beta had become the new god of thunder, and Thor was left with a father preferring Beta over himself.
Human technology is child's play for a titan.
Thanos. Alright, we all know that Thor is a pretty powerful superhero. His might is beyond any human and even godlike powers sometimes. This is obviously what makes him such a great character to have on board the Avengers team to fight those infamous bad guys. But for the Avengers to be in business, they need really bad guys. We mean bad guys so bad you would need the collective powers of every Avenger to defeat him. Who better suited than Thanos himself? A mutant member of the race of superhumans known as Titanian Eternals. He possesses all of the common abilities of the Eternals, but amplified to a 10th degree due to a combination of his mutant heritage, bionic amplification, mysticism, and power bestowed by an abstract entity. Boy, this Thanos sounds undefeatable and in desperate need of the full Avengers team to defeat. And Marvel is certainly building Thanos up for just that epic of epic battles. There's only one problem. Thor already defeated Thanos all by himself. Don't let Marvel know you know. They've been keeping this on the down low. Marvel even came out after Backlash and tried to renege the moment in the comic book by saying it was a Thanos clone called Thanosi. It's okay, Marvel. We'll let you have it. Just make sure it's epic on the big screen.
I have felt your wrath, Frost Giants. Now you shall feel mine!
Totally unoriginal. Alright, what better way to end this with the ultimate of ultimate things that Marvel certainly doesn't want you to know about? Think about it. What's one of the worst things in the world to be caught doing when dealing with intellectual property? Stealing other people's ideas and pawning them off as your own. Which is exactly what Marvel's done with Thor. Because of technology and the internet, a lot of the world knows this. But how well would they have fared back then had it been known? Think we're crazy and just harping on a few things? Nope. Thor is a total knockoff. Thor is nothing more than a straight depiction of Norse mythology. They took a figure within mythology who has been around for centuries and formed him into a comic book. Everything from his roots, his name, his world, his allies, the way he looks, although with very slight adjustments, his enemies, his power, and even his hammer Mjolnir. They did all of this and tried to claim it as their own ingenious creation. Can we blame them though? Not really. It does take work and creative originality to do something like this, but at least throw credit where it's deserved.
Now, we crush you too.
Have at thee!
So, which of these is your favorite topic that Marvel doesn't want you to know about? What are some things we missed that you would have added? Was there anything we need help in explaining? We'd love to hear about it, so let us know in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to share and like this video and click that subscribe button to join our notification squad so you can stay up to date with all of our videos. You don't want your friends knowing more than you do you? Thanks for watching!